Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is I once again, Sancratosia, President of the United Republic of Obscurium, coming to you today with another marvelous cultural exchange. Today with...
Hello, I'm Chloe de Sancratosia.
And it's a pleasure to have you here today, Chloe. I'm really looking forward to this exchange. In fact, we have already done a bit of base work for it. We've already sent each other letters. I understand mine just arrived today.
I don't know if they just arrived today. It's that they were stuck in the back of my mailbox, so probably arrived a couple days ago. But I didn't look at all the way at the back. But yeah, received it. Really enjoyed it.
And so I received and quite enjoyed your package. Quite a few lovely postcards and brochures and other things. The banknotes and stamps already have been sorted into my collection, so I don't have them at hand now. But really nice. So the idea after that was continue the exchange with the standard Obscurian Cultural Exchange format. So Chloe, if you would be so kind as to give us a short introduction as to what Sancratosia is and how it came to be.
So yes, the Principality of Sancratosia was founded in December 2021, and the idea of a micronation came a little bit as a protest or response to bills that were introduced in the National Assembly in Quebec, and it's micronations has been on my mind for many years, and I thought that this was the right moment to put it forward and to have a statement made, and thus began the adventure. And many years later, we are still here. We've been enjoying the ride so far and meeting a lot of people like yourself, and going to microcon twice has been a wonderful adventure, and meeting people who want to contribute to Sancratosia has also been really nice. And so even though at times it didn't work out with some people, but with the people who are working now, it's just a wonderful time that we have. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that with the question that you have, we'll learn a lot more about the Sancratosia in the upcoming hour, so that we'll be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you for that short introduction. And let's get right on then to the main part, which nowadays is asking each other 7 questions about the other's micronation. So, Chloe, as the guest, would you like to start with your first question?
Definitely. So the first question I have for you is more about yourself, less about Obscurium, but still related to micronationalism. It's what got you into micronationalism. How did you discover it? What is your origin story of Tsar Antonov, president of Obscurium, and just wanted to know more about how you came into the beautiful community.
Well, my origin story. It's funny because people have asked me that question a lot of times, but it always changes a little bit because whenever I'm asked questions like that, sometimes it's an effect I have. It's why I'm not good at debates, because whenever people ask me about a certain topic that's very relevant to what's going on, what's going on in the conversation right now, sometimes I forget something in that moment, and it only comes back to me later. So sometimes I forgot aspects of my own life, and then later I remember, oh wait, I did this before that. So usually the story goes that I just randomly stumbled upon it in what was it, late 2017 online. I watched some documentaries about Molossia probably, and then I uh, looked into all the rest, the Aragon Empire, Ladonia, the big ones, and I saw that all of these things existed, and I thought to myself, well, I can do that too. And so Obscurium happened. Back then, I was a bit of a communist, so the whole thing was a communist country, the United People's Republic of Mars, and it was on Mars. So off to an interesting start, and that didn't last long because after a year, we decided, because I did also have 2 other citizens involved, and we decided that that was not going anywhere, and we changed everything to the United Republic of Obscurium, more or less as you know it today. But if you go to the times even before that, um, when I was a little boy in school, I already had a despise for people telling me what to do and what not to do, especially the German government telling me this is illegal and this is illegal, because Germany has so many restrictive laws. And to just reaffirm, I'm not against the German government. I just think Germany has too many laws and we should get rid of at least half of them, because it's just crazy. But that's just how Germans are, and I'll never understand them. But the thing is, back in school, I also really didn't like the school authority and stuff. So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to do better than them, and I declared my bedroom to be an independent country without actually knowing what a micronation was. And the funny thing is, a friend of mine also got inspired to do that same thing with his room. We even signed, or we worked out a mutual recognition treaty, which we never signed. I rediscovered it like a few years ago, but I have no idea what actually happened to it. If I still have it somewhere, I probably got lost. But I even had a flag I designed for the. I never printed it or anything. I just had a symbol I used on a white sheet. That was the flag, and then I forgot about it later on. And 2 years later or so, in 2017, I went to micronationalism. And then when I discovered micronationalism, I also discovered that old idea I had. And actually, when I founded the UPROM, I incorporated that older micronation I had made into the UPROM. But that was just silly. That were just my silly doings back then. That's basically the full origin story. I don't know if I've ever told it like this completely before, but yeah, you now know. You're one of the few people who now know this full story, I guess.
Well, that's great to know that you've done that in as a young schooler in your bedroom and stuff like that. It's because I see that a lot of micronationalists go into micronations with the kind of traditional way. You hear about Molossia or Sealand or Ladonia or anything, and then you say, oh yeah, I can do that. But to have the genuine inspiration to start your own country without knowing anything about micronations
Yeah.
is quite interesting.
For me, it's kind of both. I had the
Oh yeah, sure,
inspiration
sure.
beforehand, and then Molossia got me into the proper thing.
Oh yeah.
There's just no way around Molossia nowadays, I guess.
Yeah, it's really hard to have the genuine inspiration to create your own country nowadays.
So, my first question to you, hold on. When your tablet doesn't want to work when you need it to. There we go. There are my questions. So, one of the core values of Sancratosia, as laid out in your brochure on your website, are human rights. My question would be, how does that show in Sancratosia? How does it show in what you have done and what you are doing?
I think the most concrete example is also a little bit part of why Sancratosia was founded. The bill that was put forward by the National Assembly of Quebec was seen as a setback on transgender rights, meaning that they would we can already in Quebec change our gender identity and stuff like that, and the government wanted to introduce a separate identity. So they would have been the sexual identity, which would not be able to be changed into gender identity. So they created their gender identity. And people saw that as a setback because it would automatically out people who were transgender, for instance. And so they tracked back, so it was not adopted at the end. But as part of human rights, I consider that it is human rights to affirm your identity however you like. So that's one of the things we do. We don't ask people their gender if they don't want to disclose it, and they can we don't want to authenticate whether their gender expression is true or false. It's not part of what the government should do. And whenever someone wants to change it, they just contact the government, and it's done, it's changed. And it should be that simple. You shouldn't have to fill out forms, go in front of a lawyer like we have to do here in Quebec still, and have someone as a witness. And it's just cumbersome for some people who may be marginalized by the fact that their family does not accept that. So who do you find as a witness? Can you afford a lawyer if you don't have a job and stuff like that? So I just think that when people can enjoy and express themselves freely as much as they can. That's part of what human rights are about, to consider people as fully fully fledged individuals who are, masters of themselves. So that's one of examples of how we deal with things in Sancratosia. We try to be a no nonsense state when it comes to these types of questions, where sometimes they had governments had too much bureaucracy sometimes on these types of things, especially.
Yes, I find myself quite agreeing with that, especially with the whole bureaucracy part and the inaccessibility of certain things to some people. I mean, I've never been involved in any legal proceedings, so I don't really know how that works. But from what I've heard in Germany, it all costs a lot of money if you want to do anything. And how can there be equality before the law if some people can afford more legal representation than others? That's something I
Exactly.
don't get. I think that's a major contradiction.
Yes, exactly. And I've been a witness for someone who changed their name and gender identity. And
Mhm.
it was fortunate because they worked in a law office, so they were able to have a
Mhm.
lawyer present. It was their boss and stuff like that. So, but that's the exception. Someone who doesn't have to pay for a lawyer to be there, and
Yeah.
does not have to pay to have a for the forms and stuff like that. And even when you go to hormonal therapy and stuff like that, it's covered somehow, but it's not perfect. And of course, the you shouldn't have to bankrupt yourself or prevent yourself from living your life just because um, you don't you have some troubles in being yourself. And I think society should be there along the way. So of course Sancratosia has some limits to what we can do in human rights, but I mean, we cannot pay for for surgeries and stuff like that yet. One day, who knows, what the future holds. But seriously, I just think that treating people with the utmost respect is what we thrive in. I think that's a lot of micronations also thrive for that. It's nothing that unusual. I hope. I hope we're not the exception here, treating people as with all the respect that they deserve.
No, no, those are some very good ideals.
So my next question would probably be, and it's probably because you may have a similar question for me, or I don't know. We'll see. But where do you find most of your inspiration? Do you have main influences? I saw sometimes, like for the Constitution, you write where you've taken some of the ideas, like the German Constitution and stuff like that. But are there, for the other projects that you have, are there places you tend to look toward to most, or you just randomly shoot and whatever inspires you?
I guess it's not never really a certain place I go to look at when I seek inspiration. I mean, I guess you could say there's a place because I do talk to my friends quite a lot about Obscurian naturally, especially about my friends who are also citizens. So maybe some inspiration will come there, or for my fellow micronationalists. But a lot of ideas also just come from random things I see online or see on my travels or read about one day. It varies. It varies a lot, but obviously a lot of the dragon related stuff comes from uh, Germany's Germany's dragon places Furt im Wald and Lindenfels, which we are really quite connected to. Um, so those are, I guess, those are my sources of inspiration. I, you
So
know,
there's no like a main website or a thing you go to when you say, oh, that I like. You're really
no,
going a little
no,
bit many
no
places.
single main website. And absolutely not. No, no, no. there's no, there's no such thing.
Good.
Even when it comes to dragons, there's so many different sources
Oh yeah, yeah.
on those. So it's scattered throughout the world. Well, mostly for
A-
Europe, but
and you mentioned fellow micronationalists. I'm guessing that and it's a thing we see in micronations. Sometimes when the micronations start to do things, a lot of you see a lot of micronations going to do the same thing. And are there micronations you look toward to more, or once again it's random, and you shoot a little bit everywhere?
Well, that is not as random because I mean the thing about micronation. We inspire each other all the
Yeah,
time, yeah, sure, and it's a great thing. Many great things come from
definitely.
it. And I'm going to give you a good example actually here. So recently, I thought that the old Obscurian passport wasn't good enough anymore, so I gave it a redesign, and I found a new site to print it at in Germany too. And I published a video in the Obscurian Discord server on that, and Arthur of Dictionary saw that video and then also went to and asked for the specifications, and he went to the site and also did dictionary passports in a similar style and from that site. But what he did, he expanded the idea and also made diplomatic passports and other passports. And then I got inspired by that idea and I made a diplomatic passport for Obscurium as well. It's such a wonderful example of inspiring someone else, and then he inspires me in turn. And that's what I really love about micronationalism and inspiring each other. And it also answers your question where I get a lot of inspiration from, just from the micronations I interact with the most, and Dictionary just happens to be one of those. And I think ever since our first state visit in what was that, 2021, what was it, 2020? Yeah, no, it was 2021. Ever since our first state visit, we've just been inspiring each other, and yeah, and other micronations we interact with too, of course. Edristan, for example, they inspired us to get our banknotes, and I can't think of any more examples right now. I'm sure eventually I think of them,
But
but
yeah, it's I see that with the Saint Castin, who is a micronation near where I live, and me and Dominic, we often meet, and we exchange ideas, and we work on similar projects too. And it's always great, when you pull ideas together, and greater things come for everyone. So it's really nice to see that other micronations also have that synergy with people who are close. I think you're geographically close, also kind of with Dictionary,
well,
or
kind of. It's
yeah.
like the other end of the country, literally.
But I mean, it's Europe. Everything is nearby.
Yeah, if we can, I mean, we met up last weekend.
Uh,
Actually,
oh yeah, yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
right now, about right now, a week ago, we met up in Berlin. So it's always possible to meet up somewhere in the middle. Or I visit him in the summer. We meet at the Micro Euro Summit, maybe at
Yeah.
Microcon too,
Yeah.
at the European ones. So there are always way to meet each other here in Europe, and
No, sure,
even so, we of course have online communication and all of that.
definitely.
So there are always these methods. My next question about Sancratosia was something I noticed when looking through your website. I noticed that there's no site for the Crown Council and the National Council, but there are these institutions, and they are also named in the Sancratosian history. So my question there is: are there any members of these councils? And um, follow-up question to that: are there any other major players within Sancratosia who assist you in your governance of your nation?
So yes, these councils are foreseen, but like many micronations, they are more positions to fill than people who actually can fulfill the positions. But I have a couple prospect for Crown and State Council. And although it will have to wait for the State Council, I have some ideas for it, and so I just want to make sure I do things right, which is one of the things I've always done since the beginning, to not rush into decisions. But at least for the Crown Council, probably a member of my family and close friends and stuff like that, which is usually what a Crown Council is a council to advise the ruling party. And yes, we have other people who help with Sancratosia, especially the Minister of State. He has been helping quite a lot in the past for especially reviewing everything related to the public force of Sancratosia, which is kind of our military institution because he's actually trained in the U.S. military, so he has some knowledge which we completely don't have on the subject. So at least we can always refer to him on these matters. And he actually was one of the person who really wanted to us to push forward. So it's a project that we undertook that we didn't really had a plan at the beginning for it, and so with their help we've been able to achieve I think something that is quite interesting. And right now I'm in the process of trying to look into the uniform and trying to make sure that acquiring the uniform is accessible for people around the world, because that's one of the things with Sancratosian culture. We try to um, make sure that people can easily replicate the culture at home. So, of course, if we have only specialized things that you can only acquire at this or this
Yeah.
store, it's a bit difficult. So, I'm looking into it, and of course, trying to make it affordable. I don't want a uniform that is, 125 pieces that you have to acquire and the bill ramps up. So
Oh.
I'm in the process of that, but we are also looking into a couple more people helping. Sancratosia is still just 2 years old, so it's still in its infancy. And But yes, there are some people who help behind the scenes, and some people who are not, directly involved. Like I have some friend who help with couple things, and like with you, I guess that's Dominique Saint Castin is also helping because I consult with him a lot of the things that I do, and he consults with me a lot on the things that he's doing. So other micronationalists are also resources in the community. It's not always the citizens that you have within, but also people that help you outside. So yeah, but it's really great to have people who are knowledgeable on things that you're not knowledgeable on, helping you, and vice versa. I can help Christian with things he's not familiar with, like the language of Sancratosia, for instance, and we just help each other like that. So it's been really great working with him.
It's good to hear that you have some people behind the project assisting you. That's always that not always, but that's often something micronations struggle with,
Oh yeah,
having
I
people
mean
there behind it.
it's still a struggle because most of the things still reside on me, and in I know that I have a couple of more things to do to help the implication of citizens in Sancratosia, but we've done in the past some public consultations and stuff like that. We have a citizens portal, and there were a couple of things that there was at least one question that people could answer on. But until I find someone that I know is knowledgeable enough in, maybe website management, it would be easier, because that's one of the major things that takes a lot of time. And I'm looking, but I've also never, and that's one thing I think, I've never actively promoted Sancratosia also. So there's probably some parts on me, but I decided not to do that, to instead have people who are genuinely interested in contributing and not just position seekers and stuff like that. So at least I'm pretty sure that the people who are involved in Sancratosia, even the silent ones, are at least generally interested in the project, and not just people who saw the advertisement somewhere, joined, and then don't really care because they join everything that they see. So at least there's that. I have the certainty that the people who are here are the people who care about the project.
Excellent, excellent.
So for my next question, it's about the event you did in Flagpolis, which is, I think, was it this autumn or this summer? And just wanted to know, how was your experience meeting everyday people? You said you were posted there for a couple hours and you met a couple people. Do you have any anecdotes on that day that you'd like to share, or anything interesting from the conversations with, people who were not at all really knowledgeable about micronations.
Usually, as present, I hid away my palace all day, and I don't really interact with commoners. I usually see them as below me and inferior, but no. I it was more or less the way I expected it to be. As in, I expected to stand there for about 1 hour with two persons per hour actually approaching me, and none of those conversations actually resulting in anyone in setting up any meaningful connections. But I thought to myself, I'm all about. I just sometimes I just do projects which don't make any sense and don't have any higher goal, but are just it's fun for me, or even exhausting for me. But I just like doing them, and this is just one of those things I decided to do. Let's do it because why not? It'll make for good propaganda. So, um, um, I found myself well. Also, again, just as I expected, all the people I talked to didn't know anything about micronations. So, what I basically did was I explained to them what a micronation was. I explained to them the distinction between micronations and imperial citizens because they, of course, all knew what imperial citizens were. We'll get to that in the second part of this exchange. Don't worry. And and then I explained a little bit what Obscurium is all about, and then most of the people asked me why is there a Freemason symbol on your flag? After which, and then I had to explain to them it's not a Freemason symbol, and but a lot of people a lot of people think that might make sense too, but um, yeah, that's basically how the conversations went. And sometimes, if they were a little bit more interested, they were like in total, I think there were like four people so I talked to, or five maybe, and like two of them actually looked at the display and looked at everything, and I asked those if they wanted a stamp maybe or a visa. But none of them wanted a visa. One of them, well, that was interesting. One of them insisted on buying one of those little red trident buttons I had. Red
Oh.
Trident being Obscurium's navy, and I had a display of the emblems of our non-armed forces. And she really
Mm-hmm.
liked that Red Trident button, and I thought, told her, well, it's not really on sale on our online shop. It's not something I ever considered selling. No, I want to have it. I want to have it. And then
Oh, that
I agreed to sell for €1.
that's good. That's good.
Despite the fact I didn't come there to sell anything. Uh, in that conversation, I actually thought we were building up to something because she and her mother did seem interested in Obscurian, but I never heard from them again, so
Mm,
that didn't go anywhere.
yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I successfully made a couple more people in Germany aware of micronations, and with a little bit of luck, they told their family and friends, "Hey, I met this guy by the sea who talked about micronations," and maybe they looked it up online and they found some more info about it. So that was the whole purpose of it, basically.
Oh, that's cool. I hope they didn't said, "Oh, I met this crazy person by the water." It's terrible.
That will be the alternative way the conversation. And that is more like probably a more likely way the conversation went through. But
No,
yeah,
let's suppose that they were, able to at least understand from your discussion that at least you could make the difference with imperial citizens. As you say, we were, as
exactly.
you said, we're going to delve into that later. But yeah, that's interesting because not that many people do that. Go out there and try to get people who are um, I would say neophytes in micronations. They know nothing about what we're doing and what micronations are about, and it's nice to see that some people are willing to go out there and do the greedy work and
Yeah, I just wanted to do. But the thing is, we do micronational events, but usually they
yeah,
are like behind closed doors. It's like
sure.
MicroCon or Micro Euro Summit or
Mm-hmm.
going to Foot and Val to give some awards away, but we don't interact with quote unquote normal people at those events. There we are
Yeah.
among ourselves. So I really want to get the word out to the German population
Mm-hmm.
on what micronation is, and they don't have to be afraid of us, and that we're not planning an uprising or anything like that.
Well, I hope you'll repeat the experience, and
I
it's
definitely want to do that. I actually wanted to do it sooner, but then that opportunity didn't come up, and then the weather turned sour, and right
yeah.
now it's not good. So
Well, keep us posted on this activity.
I
It's nice to
absolutely
see
will.
people going out there. Yeah.
I absolutely will do that. Actually, I also got inspired by another micronation to do that. Dracul, they have this podcast, micro improvement, and I believe in that podcast they talked about how to do publicity and stuff like that, how to get more citizens. And one of their
Hmm.
points, if I remember correctly, was to go outside. It's a possibility, and just go on the
Yeah.
street and do that. And yeah, I thought to myself, why not?
Yeah, that's what
That's always
that
an option.
that's I think the only other one I could think of that is doing that. Going out there. I guess Molossia in some way when they do stuff. I'm pretty sure, but I don't think that they go and set up shop and talk about
Well, yeah,
Molossia.
I've never seen. I've seen President Kevin Ball walk around with his uniform in the city,
Yeah,
but I've never seen him set up a Molossia display and start to talk to
exactly.
people
Yeah.
specifically about micronations and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it's not something that most micronations do, but by your experience, if it's something that you're willing to repeat, I'm guessing you had a good
Absolutely.
time.
I
Yeah.
didn't have
So
a bad experience. I mean, the property, the property on which trap is located is public. It's public,
yeah, sure,
so
exactly.
there's no problem with doing something like that there. Next to it, there is well, Flagport is also on a former military base, but there's still some areas that are closed off, and there's a refugee home next to it. So there's some security, and they came by and asked, "What are you doing?" And I said to them, "Okay, cool, keep going doing." So, you know, even they didn't mind me doing it there. So yeah,
Oh,
positive experience in the end.
that's cool.
Um, my next question is actually a bit of a follow up on my previous question too. What does your family think about Sancratosia? When did you tell them about it for the first time? Did you before you founded it or long after? How is that situation?
Um, well, not everyone in my family knows about it. My brothers know about it. Not my parents, but my brothers know about it. My parents, they're just judgmental in everything I do.
Mm,
So no matter what I will say, I don't really care about their opinion. So I
oh,
don't
I'm
know
sorry
why
to
I
hear.
would. It's all right. It's all right. I don't know why I would ask for their thought on the subject. I probably know what's the answer anyway. But my brothers know about it because I'm closer with them, and one of them is actually interested in joining. And I told them, I think a month after. Oh, yeah, just a month after starting it. I just wanted to. See if it was going to go well with Sancratosia in the first place. It's not but usually it's these types of projects, and I have a couple of one of the things I say to people when they start micronations and they ask questions, what are your tips and tricks on how to do micronations, and I say, well, one of the things that you should do is wait before taking decisions. Most of the time people rush into decisions and they regret it immediately after. And the other thing is buy things, because after that it's difficult to go back on your ideas. So if you buy a flag, you'll be
Mm,
tempted to use that flag at
yeah.
least once or twice before retiring it. So once you commit to buying stuff, it's really hard to backtrack on it. And so I think I received the first flags or so when I told them. So I knew then it was real. It was not something I would backtrack of, something that I had committed into. And so that's when I told them. And I told a couple of friends, mostly the closest to me. They've all reacted quite nice because they see that what I'm doing, I'm happy doing it, and I think that people who care about you are happy for things that make you happy. And it could be that, or I could be smoking 5 packs of cigarette per day or stuff like that. So I mean, there are worse things in the world that I could take an enjoyment into. And so micronationalism is actually something that they see that I enjoy doing, that brings me a whole new community and all new people that think a little bit like myself, and at least people with whom I can have conversations and not be the weirdo in the room. With which is and I come from a political background. I studied in political science and I've done political simulations in the past, and some of the conversations we often have amongst ourselves is, don't you feel a bit lonely at times to be the only one who is, that interested sometimes
Mm.
especially in political subjects. And having these meetup like the political simulations bring all the weirdos together, and we have a good time actually. And so in micronations, I think, I say weirdo, but it's nothing but love for the people in micronations, and in micronationalism, because I think that sometimes we feel a bit lonely at doing the things we do, because not many people would do it. And so to find a community is actually a way to connect with the kind of special things that we do. And yeah, so the friends that I talk to about Sancratosia, they're just happy for me, because they know that it's a place where I'll be, understood, and where I'll find people who think like me. And they're just they're just really happy for that. So yeah, it's just been no bad reaction so far. It's I apprehended bad reactions. People may not understand
Mm.
micronationalism, may not understand why you're doing this, and why are you going to Chicago for a weekend, or why are you going to Las Vegas for what, for that. Yes, I'm going to Las Vegas for to meet with Kevin Baugh and Queen Caroline and Kendrick Travis and all these nice folks of that you usually find at Microcon. Yes, I'll do that. And when they see how happy you I am from going there and coming back, they understand that it's just I have fun doing it. And so yeah, that's I think the only person that would be, I think that the people who would be mad about me doing that would be the person that I wouldn't want any contact with them after, because they definitely don't really care about how I feel. And people who would be indifferent would be, I would be fine with that. But people who would find it um strange, or they would be, oh, why are you doing this, and they would kind of talk me out of it. These are the people I wouldn't want any contact with after. So maybe that's why I'm pre-telling people, because I fear maybe that reaction sometimes,
Mm.
and knowing that some people don't really care about what makes me happy.
Mm. But it's good that you've gotten positive reactions from the people you've told so far.
Oh, yeah. So far, it's been overwhelmingly good.
Absolutely.
So my next question for you is, well, you are a republic, and you operate with more democratic processes than most micronations, because in micronations it's mostly
Oh, yes.
dictatorships, or absolute monarchies and stuff like that. But on average, how long does it take for a proposal to be approved from start to finish? Or what's the longest, or what's the shortest
Mm.
that you've ever had? Because democratic processes, takes time.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know ballpark numbers of how long it takes for a sometimes simple or complicated proposals to be approved in these democratic processes.
Yeah, that's a good question. The democratic process is quite infamous for taking some time, and that's why they are. I'm pretty sure that's why there are a lot of micronationalists. That's one of the reasons why there are a lot of micronationalists out there that do not want to have that hold them back. And there is actually in the law for national stability, there will be Article 64 of the Basic Law of Obscurium. The president is actually given the theoretical power to do whatever he pleases, just in case, because we never know. Everybody might be on vacation for a year, and then there's this really important law that Obscurium needs to pass right now, and I can't get Parliament together, so I just need to do this. That the thing is, even if I had to use that power, I would still get everyone's opinion somehow, even if it weren't in an official capacity. I would still try to get the opinions of people together, and because I really do not want to go against the wishes of the Obscurian people, and I try to do everything in my power to respect their wishes. There are, of course, some things I do as president that I do unilaterally, or with just talking after just talking to the government without discussing it with all Obscurian citizens, like day-to-day business, like cultural exchange, for example. This was not voted on by the Obscurian Parliament. This is foreign affairs are firmly within the department of the government, so we don't need to concern Parliament with such things, unless it's something very, very important. Um, but for anything else, when we are voting on a new law and or something in changing a legal code or something like that, we it usually starts with I suggesting a time for a parliamentary meeting. If it's a if I'm in luck, we can get one set up within 2 weeks. If I'm not in luck, it can take up to 1.5 to 2 months for us to find a good date, because it has to be a Sunday. It has been established that all Obscurian citizens who are members of parliament are only available on Sundays at the same time. So it needs to be a Sunday, and then we need a Sunday where everybody is free at that time. So could take up to 2 months, and then once the parliamentary meeting happens, we of course need to discuss it. We need to vote on it, and after the parliamentary meeting, all Obscurian citizens get to vote on it as well, and that takes 4 more days. So the fastest would probably be, maybe we can get it set up within a week. So that would be 2 weeks, the fastest time in which we can get something passed through the normal democratic process. The longest, 2.5 months. It really depends on it
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
how the
that's
situation
interesting
is.
because for most people, they would have this idea that it's longer than 2 weeks or 2.5 months. It would be 6 months or a year to have
No, no,
things
not
done.
quite that
And
long. I mean, the longest time really is the time you need to set up the meeting, and then
sure.
once we have the meeting, I usually have a list of things to discuss, because
Mm-hmm.
when I call a parliamentary meeting, usually I had a lot of ideas at the same time. So I'm going to discuss all of them, and then we vote on all of them, and that only takes 4 days. And after that, it's decided,
Mm-hmm.
unless they voted against the law. But we haven't had that yet, I think. No, I don't think we have had that yet. No, we haven't had that yet. So we never actually had a situation where something passed by the parliament was rejected by the population.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, one problem we have faced was the fact that we had some citizens who were very inactive, um, but who did still retain their theoretical voting rights. So, whenever we voted, we still had to consider their numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But we got rid of that now. If a citizen is inactive for longer than a year, we voted on that too. So that wasn't just something I
Yeah,
implemented.
yeah.
All active citizens agreed on this. So if a citizen is inactive for longer than a year, they are automatically taken out of the list of voting citizens. So they lose their right to vote, basically. They can get it back anytime within the second year.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to contact me and say, I want to vote again, and they'll be back on the list. It's that easy. We're not excluding anyone. It's just, the thing is, if it's a citizen who is like not active anymore at all, we don't want that citizen hindering the democratic process. And after 2 years, if citizens are completely inactive and unresponsive, after 2 years, they lose their citizenship automatically. But that's just an in-between step.
Yeah.
Um,
So you
yeah.
you wait for everyone to vote until something is passed, right? Or after the 4 days, it's done.
After the 4 days, it's done. They have 4 days to vote, and usually I'll send people reminders and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But after 4 days is taken, all I have to do is I have to send them the link. I
Oh
have to
yeah.
let them know this is the vote. You have 4 days to vote, and I also make usually I also try to make the minutes of the last meeting accessible to everyone,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so they can have a look at that if they hadn't participated at the parliamentary meeting. But then they have 4 days to vote, and if they haven't voted within 4 days, that's it.
Of
It doesn't
course,
matter if
I
they
knew
voted
that
or
my
not.
phone was gonna ring. I was sure my phone was gonna ring. It's
No
terrible.
worries. No worries.
I hope we heard your response good on the recording. But yeah, it's interesting because yeah, some people would have thought that the democratic processes would be much more complicated, and I guess that it's your I guess that the solution to convene parliament only when there's quite a sizable amount of decisions to be made, and we take people just once once it's necessary, instead of having regular meetings where we sometimes don't have anything to discuss, and then people lose interest. And maybe
Exactly.
that's one way to keep the democratic processes alive in micronations. Well, I hope for the people who watch it gives them ideas on how
Hmm.
to either implement them or improve on their democratic processes, because there aren't that many micronations that we know have that all of their laws and everything being
Yeah.
approved democratically. And so it's really 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 good for you that you've been able to find what works for you.
Yeah, yeah. It took a long time to work this kind of system out as well. Before that, our parliamentary sessions consisted of a proposal being written in the parliamentary Discord chat, and that was it. But the thing is, I want to give everybody an opportunity to discuss this on the same terms. In one place, it's some people might not see it during the time we discuss it there, so I
Yeah.
want to make sure everybody is there, everybody can discuss it at the same time, so there are no weeks between responses and people forget what they were even talking about. It's better. It works a lot better for us. It works a lot for us better that way.
Huh.
But but we also managed to still be able to call ourselves a direct democracy, while having kind of representatives, because
Mhm.
not all Obscurian citizens are in the parliament, but all Obscurian citizens can be members of parliament, theoretically, except for the government members. We do have separation of power. So, for example, I'm not allowed to vote in parliament. I'm only allowed to vote in the second stage of voting, when the vote goes to the people.
Mhm.
I'm a speaker right now because nobody else wants to do it, but so I manage everything. But I'm obviously, everybody is allowed to speak in parliament. Even foreigners are allowed to speak in parliament and give
Mm.
suggestions. But only the members of parliament are allowed to vote, which is actually just three or four, I think, three Obscurian citizens right now.
Mhm.
They basically make the first decision after all of us have discussed it. But it works pretty well like that. But
Yeah, that's
and the
cool.
thing is, all Obscurian citizens have the opportunity, theoretically, to participate in the democratic process. It's just some of them uh, can't or don't want to. But
Yeah.
we are still a direct democracy. We're not like our representative democracies, where the people elect a
Mhm.
representative. The people are their own representatives if they wish to be so.
That's cool. Really lovely to see. That's one of the things which is interesting in micronations, to have all these different types of forms of government,
Mm,
even though there's a big majority of dictatorships and absolute monarchies and stuff like that. But to see how some micronations manage with a smaller population to achieve something that is something that some states should strive to have, like the direct democracy, which has been lost
yes.
to most major governments in the world. So
Yeah. Yeah,
quite
that's
cool.
true. Right. My next question to you is, found on your website a little subsection saying that Sancratosia participates in aerospace research and is a member of the international aerospace community. I wanted to ask you what the deal is with that. Do you do any specific projects in that regard, or how does it work?
We wanted, and there's one thing, we joined the ISC not mostly. We see a lot of micronations to they do some rocket launches and stuff like that, or firework launches and everything. And it's quite cool. I mean, I love the imagination behind these types of why should rockets be limited to rockets to send people into space, or to the International Space Station? I mean, space interest is not something that should be closely guarded by the major nation, by the
Mm,
big nations. But being in a really really urban place, I know there are some restrictions and stuff like that in the closest vicinity of where we are in operating. And we decided to join the ISC to join other space programs mostly, and help fund
mm, mhm.
that those aspirations by some micronations. And unfortunately, no one responded to our call for funding. So, I mean, we have money to spend into a space program. There's this there we are ready to split costs on rocket launch and stuff like that, and stuff that people want to investigate. Maybe they want to buy a better telescope. We would be ready to split the costs, and they share with us the pictures that they take and stuff like that. So we were really joining this venture to help other micronations achieve these ideas, because we know that being in a really urban city, I mean, the conditions are not good for
Yeah, no.
launching rockets, observing stars, and stuff like that. So I was like, I mean, I'm not gonna try to find some place where I need to go really far to achieve that. I was like, there are so many micronations who thrive to have these types of programs, but they don't have the funds for it. So I was like, well, that is something that I've not heard any other micronations do. Instead of having their own space program, they would help propel other space programs. And unfortunately, no one answered the call in the international aerospace community is
Well,
not the most active.
well,
Also,
if you're a micronation watching this and you're interested in space,
well,
here
sure,
here is your
definitely
opportunity.
you can contact us. Of course, we have limited funds, but we have funds still, where we could at least cover half the cost. And if it means that instead of buying the $50 rocket at the stores, a micronation can buy the 100 or $200 rocket, then it's something that can be quite achieved. And of course, it would be an ongoing discussion on the contribution and what we get in return and stuff like that. But it's that was the idea, and that is an idea that unfortunately I've put aside. Things move, and probably maybe because I was you know saddened by the fact that no one took up onto the offer of us spending money on their micronations, which is maybe I think people were like, but because we were still quite new at the time,
It's too good to be
people were
true.
maybe uh, cautious
Yeah.
about that. Maybe it was too soon.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that investing in other micronations is something that we want to do, because um, micronations left and right are falling because they cannot sustain themselves, unfortunately, or they have good ideas but they cannot put them forward because they don't have you know micronations. Micronationalism is a really expensive hobby,
Yeah.
and it's not said enough for some that you look at micronations and you say, oh, it's easy. It's easy to start your own micronation. It's more difficult to sustain it and then to
Yes.
achieve certain levels. At least certain levels you may put in your mind. Oh, you say, oh, I'll go to microcon, I'll go and visit other micronations, and I'll do this and I'll do that, and then you find out that it costs thousands and thousands of dollars yearly, and you're like, okay, I did not expect that. So I think it needs to be said more. You can do micronationalism without spending. It's okay, you can do that. But for most, you will not, unfortunately, achieve some of the levels that people have in mind when they start micronation. They say, oh, it's easy buying a flag. Everybody has bought a flag, but buying flags can be quite expensive quite fast if you don't, especially if you change flags every so often. But yeah, so I wanted to try to find ways to invest in micronations, to keep them interested, to and especially in areas where we cannot do things. And you see that in the real world. You have countries collaborating together. I mean, Canada was one of the first countries to send a satellite, but we didn't send it by ourselves. We joined the United States, who had the technology to send satellites into space. And so Alouette was one of the first I think it's the actually first non-Soviet or American satellite in space, was a Canadian one. But of course, it was not a Canadian rocket who launched it.
Mm.
And so maybe this is ways where Sancratosia could, maybe some person has the envy of shooting a rocket someplace, and we could put something of Sancratosia origin in there, and they launch it, and we're part of that spatial micronational community. So but in innovation, in projects, this is something that it's thanks for bringing it up. It reminds me that this was something in the early days we really wanted to put forward, especially in areas where we unfortunately cannot act We really wanted to, be able to achieve some of these ideals by also helping other micronations achieve the same ideals as us. So, um, yeah, that I'll bring that back. These ideas of helping micronations achieve their dreams.
Nice, nice. It's really a fine example of the spirit of helping
Oh
out
yeah.
that makes this community so great, and I'm glad you considered doing something like that, even though nobody has taken up your offer yet. But maybe several CDs. I mean, I did plan to do like a rocket project with a micronation back in. Oh, that was back in 2019, right after Microcon, first state visit ever. But unfortunately, the guy who actually knew how to build a rocket, that's the thing.
Mm,
And that, but he didn't really stay focused on the whole project. After that, it was building an airplane. After that, it was going into politics, and that's where he is now. So
mm-hmm.
no more rockets, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
I have no idea how to do anything that has to do with mechanics or technology. So
Yeah, I
I don't
get
even know
that.
what my part of the whole thing was. Probably decorating the rocket. Design is my thing, but not building.
Like one of the thing I would personally love to do would be to do like mission patches, but of course,
Oh,
if I cannot send the rockets, I mean, I don't see why I would draw them now. But yeah, that could be a sticker that I make, and that micronational exchange. Of course, on agricultural products, there are some restrictions with customs and stuff like that. So I would
yeah,
have to
yeah.
look more into that. So it was with someone in the US. It would have still been a problem because of customs, but maybe I should look more into Canadian micronations and stuff like that. But this is something that I would still want to do because I have limited space here. It's not that I don't want to grow chives here. It's just that if someone wants to grow them because they have land and a big place for a garden, then they want to do that. That is something that I was also interested, and I would be able to. I would be ready to invest into the time that it's needed to take care of the garden and a couple of things if needed, and um, exchange these things. So, yeah, these are the other ideas, but a lot of ideas that we have in the future is especially that to try to bring people and micronations closer in not just invest in our micronation but also invest in others and invest in projects that we hold dear. That's why that's also why we are a patron of MicroWiki. That's the reason we gladly accept to send stuff to other micronations and have these trade with people. So we don't think that micronationalism can survive if it's just everyone just investing on their own micronations.
Yeah.
If we want to foster great projects in other micronations, well, sometimes we need to pull the money together. That's why we've also contributed to the website of the micro francophonie, because it's expensive to have a website for an organization. So we don't mind doing that, especially for micronations who may not have the funds to do that. And so whenever we can, whenever it fits our budget, we are ready to help others. And so yeah, the offer is on the table for anyone listening. You can contact the Sancratosian government and we can work out the things.
Beautiful. The spirit of cooperation. Do you have
Definitely.
dandelions in Montreal?
Oh yes, yes, they grow everywhere.
Well, there you go. Obscurium's national flower is already there.
Oh
Don't even need to
great.
send it.
Great. Well, that was the idea with the chives. Also, it's that you can grow it almost everywhere, and they're actually really good for bees. So
Mm,
we know that there's a
nice.
problem with bees disappearing and
Yeah.
dying, and so chives is actually one of the great pollinators you can put in your gardens. Plus, it's wonderful in cooking, and the flower is edible also. So if you want to eat the
Oh.
chives flower, it's edible. So it was, once again in the ideas of trying to do something good for the community, and this time it's some do something good for the environment as well.
Lovely, lovely.
The next question I have for you tend of go with the first one, the well, not the first one, but the previous one. How do you deal with citizenship applications? Because I know you contacted me once to know more about someone who you because I think you also have exclusivity with citizenship,
Mm.
like a lot of micronations do. So how do you investigate, or how do you deal with the bogus applications or stuff like that? So what are your tips and tricks for citizenship applications, if I
Oh
say
yes,
so?
citizenship. A process which has gotten more complicated and complicated ever since Obscurium's inception, because I mean, learning by doing. That's how Obscurium basically works. And what we've learned is that some citizens just don't do anything and just are drag on Obscurium because they don't do anything. But we need active citizens. Obscurium is a nation for people who want to do something, not for people who want citizenship and then sit around for the whole day and not do anything with it. So um, the right now we have a citizen application on our website. If you fill in the form, we look if everything you've filled in, especially the reason you gave us why you want to be an Obscurian citizen, if that fits, and then we send you a citizenship form. And after, no, sorry, not a citizenship form, a citizenship test. And if you answer that test correctly, then I also interview you. So we have three stages now to see whether or not citizens you can become an Australian citizen. And after learning the hard way with quite a few people, I'm also now not accepting applications from people who seem too unenthusiastic, because there have been people who did all the right things, who gave all the right replies, but they gave such reasons for joining as I like your ideals, I like Obscurium, I like your micronation. I'm looking more for something like I can relate to direct democracy. I've been doing political work myself. I absolutely adore dragons, and I would love to expand on dragon culture. I'm not looking for dragons good. I want to be citizen. That's why we've expanded the citizenship process a lot. But you know, before we add that, obviously we have had some issues with citizens. So there was only one time actually when we contacted other micronations trying to find out if someone. Well, when we specifically contacted other micronations trying to find out if someone had more than one citizenship, which wasn't this case because I got a tip from someone. But there have been previous cases where I was just randomly told by another micronation that, oh yes, this guy is totally also a citizen within my micronation. So the major problem in the end is people also getting more citizenships afterwards, despite the fact they are aware of, because I tell them that, and they're being told that on the website and everything, that they cannot have more than 3 citizenships, including Obscurian citizenship. And it just we just don't want that, because if you have more than 3 citizenships, I mean, how are you going to focus on everything? If you want Obscurian citizenship, that then you have to decide for yourself that that is your citizenship, that you're Obscurian now and you're going to dedicate yourself to that country. You don't have to do that, but then you also don't have to get Obscurian citizenship. It's that easy. And 3 citizenships, because some people like I do also already have macronational citizenship, sometimes even dual ones. I have Greek and German one. So in that case, they can also get their micronational one. We don't really care about the macronational citizenships. but three is the limit, and we are very we are very strict about that if we found out. And I believe we've had two cases so far where we have specifically kicked out people because they had more citizenships and they were allowed to have, and because they also lied to us and didn't tell us about those citizenships. But usually we don't really. I mean, usually it would be difficult finding out if they have other citizenships. I mean, I know a lot of other micronationalists, but I'm not going to write every one of them whenever I get a new citizenship application. Ask them, hey, there's this guy applying for Obscurian citizenship. Do you know him?
I get
That's
that.
not
I get
that's not what I'm not the NSA.
and kind of a follow up. What are the types of question without divulging or hindering the process of citizenship applications for Obscurium, but the types of questions you have in your tests of citizenship, like the second barrier that people have to.
I mean,
Are there? What are the types of questions that you have?
I have no problem. I mean, I don't remember word for word what to. I have no problem divulging that because it's information that's freely available on our website,
Yeah.
and that's what it's testing basically.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
what is Obscurium's main national holiday? What is Obscurium's national animal?
Mm-hmm.
What is the 3rd of March? What is Obelisk Day? Just basic things you can find on our website, basic cultural aspects,
Yeah.
especially to see if people have actually looked at the website and actually looked at our culture and
Mm-hmm.
they actually know anything about Obscurium. Even if they haven't done that before, if they answer their questions correctly, at least then they took the time and looked look at them on the website. So that's something at least.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
if they haven't done that at that point, it forces them to look further into Obscurium.
Exactly.
That wasn't enough in the past, unfortunately, though, which is why there's this third interview step when I kind of and that third step would be if I see them giving answers which seem unenthusiastic, I specifically try to go deeper into that and ask them about that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the sad thing is for our last citizens, the one that was also a Sancratosian citizen, that process didn't quite work because at that point I didn't consider answers that were too bland to be not good. But at this point, at this point I'm going to say better safe than sorry, and also um, put a stop to it right there. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're genuine about it, the next reply from them probably would be something along the lines of, "Well, I'm enthusiastic about this. I totally want to be a member of Obscurium. Sorry
Mm-hmm.
if I come over a bit enthusiastic. I just don't write much, and then we get into a conversation, and then that would be better. But some people just, I write them, I give them longer and detailed questions, and their reply is just one sentence with 3 words in it, or something like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, that really doesn't resonate with me. It's
No,
fine if
I
you don't
get
like
that.
to write a lot, but that's just too. That's better safe than sorry. That's the motto from now on in the
Yeah.
Obscurian citizenship process.
No, I get that, and especially with are there many people out there who, you see them, the people who have 20 citizenships, and at one point it does not mean anything for them and for the
Mm,
micronations who they are members of. And I know that one of the things that I do now is so Jamastan has put the name of everyone who applied, and usually it's a good database to see if people have more than one citizenship, because usually if they wrote Slow Jamastan, they wrote everyone, and so
mm,
you usually don't go from Slojamastani's citizenship to Obscurium citizenship
mm.
without
No,
having the
no,
idea to collect citizenships, because
that's true.
yeah.
It's a very
So
easy citizenship to get.
exactly, so it's been kind of my next go-to database nowadays, the Slojamastani citizenship bank.
That's
So
fair. But the thing is, if they already write in the application that they are still Jamaican citizen, that wouldn't really help me much further because I already know they're a citizen of that nation. So
yeah, exactly, yeah.
am I supposed to know which other micronations they applied for? Ladonia maybe, but I don't think Ladonia has a register. I think it's
I don't
also
think
very
so.
easy to get Ladonian citizenship. So
Oh, definitely.
um,
Well, there are some micronations. I mean, like, and that's the thing, and maybe that's a follow up question. Um, if people have, citizenship of Ladonia, and they don't really contribute, I mean, but they want to contribute to Obscurium, that would be all right with you, or
look,
uh,
if they have, let's say, U.S. citizenship, Ladonian citizenship, and then they want to
mhm.
get Obscurian citizenship, that's totally fine
Yeah,
with me.
that's
If they're
totally fine
genuine
with
about
me.
it and they don't have any other
Yeah,
citizenship, they can be Ladonian citizens still.
yeah.
I just don't want them to be involved in too many projects because
Oh,
that
definitely.
usually, well, that usually means they won't be involved in any project.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of the thing. Yeah,
but
because
two
yeah,
micronations is definitely manageable.
I think a lot of people join Ladonia because it's Ladonia, and the
Mm,
same with although for the Arican Empire, I know that you have to have some activity because there's a big purge every year or so
a big
in the
purge.
Arican Empire. They call it the pruning, but yeah, so they prune a lot of people,
Nice.
because you have to be some at least I know the level of activity that Eric is asking is that people respond to the annual email, are you still a citizen? And
That's
that's
fair.
the basic, that's the and I guess that's the thing you do also with your citizens after 1 year. Are you still there? And if they don't answer, okay,
I
well
mean,
then
yeah, that's basically. I just actually sent out the first Obscurian activity report
hmm.
because they are in the constitution. They have, I believe, three basic duties of citizens set out, and if they don't fulfill these duties within a year, whether they are reminded in the activity report. And then after 2 years, if they have completely failed to perform, I mean, if it's like, oh yeah, you forgot to attend, you forgot to celebrate the second holiday, they have to celebrate at least two official holidays in some capacity. So if like the first year they did it and the second year they didn't, like that's not a problem. But if they didn't do anything, if they didn't celebrate, if they didn't vote on anything, that's like no. And they get
Yeah,
reminded after 1 year, here is your activity report, this is what you have to do next year, please. And after 2 years, they'd get the message, sorry, but yeah, no, you're out.
totally fair.
Hasn't happened yet in that way because that law is quite new, but we have kicked people out for severe inactivity before. I think we removed one citizen specifically for that reason before.
Hmm, good.
Oh yeah, it's my turn. um, my next question. Actually, yeah, good, good thing. It's ties into what I just talked about, and also it's something I really like to talk about with other micronations doing these exchanges. National holidays. What is your main national holiday? I saw you had quite a few, and I think I had an idea what the main one might have been, but I wanted to specifically ask, what is your main national holiday, if there is a main one, and how do you celebrate it?
It's a good question. I'd say that personally, I think that the Independence Day is like the main one. I usually try to do a big announcement around the Independence Day. So this year especially, it was the confirmation of the ceremonial territorial claim of Sancratosia, which was quite a big chunk of our national identity that was confirmed and stuff like that. Um, but I think there are other holidays I really enjoy. I really enjoy um, the Day of the Goose because I usually and that's the funny thing. I don't know why I thought about that. I usually think that Sancratosia has been somehow on the more serious side of things, but for Goose Day, I know that it's typical to eat small birds, and so I usually prepare duck for the occasion. And since I enjoy eating duck, it's we don't eat the goose because goose meat is supposedly not that good. I've never tasted it, and I don't really want to taste it. But it's like tradition to prepare poultry products, so whether chicken, duck, or something like that. And I just think it's funny that it's kind of eating your national animal, which I don't know. I don't know why I thought of that back then when I began Sancratosia. I think I was on the different influences of professional and funny in some ways. So yes, I think that Independence Day is usually the one that is the most major. But there are other holidays which are really interesting, like Goose Day. Um, I also um, I also enjoy Emergence Day. Also, I remember last year we kind of went back into the archives of Sancratosia and
Ah.
decided to go back, and it's this one. It's closer to home because I keep a journal of things in Sancratosia. It's been a while since I've updated entries because nowadays it's mostly on the computer what we do, and but there are especially some thoughts in that journal, especially around the time we started contemplating the idea of really doing the micronation. And so Emergence Day is also a fun nostalgic time where we look back on, where we started and how it's going now, and so it's always a kind of a special time also. But yeah, Independence Day is definitely, I think, the main one. Although it's unfortunate that it's on 1st December because it's really cold to do things outside. It's not usually in Quebec it's usually cold. It's cold to do things outside on December 1st. In hindsight, I would probably
Mm,
do that another day, but it's the day we declared our
yeah.
independence on, and it was at midnight. I remember it was midnight, December 1st, and we put everything online, and it was a really fun day to stay up later, for at least
Nice.
it's not as late. I usually go to sleep around 1 a.m., and so it was not that late for me. um, but yeah, it was a fun time, Independence Day, and trying to do something really cool, like for the first anniversary we worked with Jurgen to push the limits, Jurgen Schwartz of your stamps, for people who don't know, and we pushed the limits of his printing capabilities, and we found out that it was possible to have a transparent image put up on the background sheet. And so we were able to design this brand special stamp for the first anniversary of Sancratosia. And so he was really, really happy that we pushed him forward with that type of idea. So um, even though that didn't really related that closely to Sancratosian culture, but on the innovation side of things, that we want to propel forward the innovation in the micronational community. That was interesting for the first anniversary of Sancratosia, to actually be able to instill ideas in a provider that has been a keystone of the community for so many years now.
Oh yes.
So that was really cool. So yes, and I'd say that's the holiday that's also the most celebrated by Sancratosians. Actually, it's one of the moments where people are, oh yes, we're proud to be Sancratosians. We're glad that this project exists, and that we are part of it.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Well, that's lovely. Well, I definitely agree with the 1st of December thing. The 3rd of March as Obscurian's national holiday, especially since last year and also this year we want to do some stuff outside, was a very poor choice on hindsight because the weather up here is so horrible. If it doesn't rain, there's very strong wind and very cold. It's very cold, and yeah, people did not enjoy standing outside for hours while speeches were being made and such. So if you are someone who is considering founding a micronation, please wait until summer with your declaration of independence. Um, yeah, if I could go back and like, of course, over the years we also talk about that in part two, but of course over the years there's some little things in your micronation that you might want to change but you can't easily. But the one thing I would really want to change about Obscurium is that damn declaration date. I really would like for it to be in the summer because it's really annoying having it in March. But
Yeah.
alas, that's the day I decided to go ahead. It's the only reason why was because I didn't want to wait any longer, and because the digits of the day were the third day of the third month, and that was it.
Yeah, I get that. That's also why December 1st was the date for the independence of
Mm.
Sancratosia. Uh, I guess I could have done the 30th of November because most of the stuff I think was already ready by then. Um, but I don't know why the December
I
1st,
mean,
especially because 30th of November would have worked perfectly.
but that wouldn't have been much different weather-wise.
It wouldn't have been much different weather-wise. The thing is, if I would have waited until it was, warmer climate in warmer weather in Quebec, it would have been really close to Microcon.
Mm,
That's also to take into consideration for
of course.
especially the time I declared independence of Sancratosia, and yeah, but I mean, that's one of the thing with micronations. You have to make your bed sometimes, and that's the best one. I'm actually glad that it's December 1st and not October 21 when Sankratoja was, you know, okay, we have a name, we have a flag, we have a system of government. Let's go. That would not have worked because the flag has changed since in between 21 of October and
Mm,
December 1st. The
right.
former government changed between 21 October and 1st of December. And so that is why I really enjoy December 1st, because at least everything was, at least functional, and most ideas were, and still today, the most of the things that were decided before December 1st um, are still today with us. And so that's one of the great things that I liked about the fact that it's not 21 October, the Independence Day of Sancratosia, but December 1st.
Mm, all right.
So the next question is also one that probably some people asked you before, but I don't think I've heard a response from you anywhere. So, how much time do you spend on Obscurium, and most importantly, how do you find the time? Because I see a lot of things that you do. You're always out of some place, visiting other micronations. You're
Oh yes.
always, you're all over the place. So, how much time do you think you spend on Upstream, and how do you find the time? And because how do you organize your time? Mostly, I think it's discipline that you have to take. But I want to hear your thoughts on time management and micronations.
The short answer to how much time I spend on Obscurium is too much. I should spend a lot more time doing other things. I have so many books I still want to read. But
Yeah,
I spend too much time organizing stuff for Obscurium. The thing is, I'm in this intermediate period right now. School's over, and I want to wait until I study at university until autumn this year. So I have this time where I'm not really not doing anything at all except for my mini job where I go to work Saturdays and Tuesdays and Fridays for a couple of hours only though. So I've a lot of free time on my hand right now, and I'm using it to. I'm using it in this way to invest a lot of time into Obscurity. So time management very chaotic. I don't have a schedule at all. I do quite like to sleep in until 12 or 1300 hours usually
hmm
because I like to stay up late as well. The best time for me to work on anything is I'm a bit sluggish over the day usually when I don't when I'm just at home, and so usually I work during the night and stuff, and then I'm really tired the next day, obviously. So it's like this ever lasting. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
that. But yeah, usually I spend a couple of hours every day working on micronational stuff. um, it's not always directly Obscurian Dawn. There's sometimes things that do come in between. I have a list of things I need to do, but sometimes there's like this spontaneous thing that comes up. For example, you sent me a new coat of arms for Sancratosia's page at the Microflag archive, so that would just be something I fit in between on a
hmm
spontaneous note. And then I have other things that are on my list, which is right here, my list of things I need to do immediately. And like yesterday, I finally finished my address book. I had one before that, but it was full, so I had a new one, and I finally finished doing that. It took me 1.5 hours too, but yeah, and that's just stuff I put in the screen. But usually I sit down and on my laptop or my tablet and I design something. And oh yeah, that's something I do sometimes between to do art. I also have to do something in that regard for Obscurium because the new Declaration Day logo I envisioned for the sixth Declaration Day this year
Mm-hmm.
is something I actually have to draw, something I can put together with graphics I already have. So that's also something I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Something I did just a couple of days ago was draw the logo for the Obscurian Year of the Dragon. So now it's gone to my fellow citizen Jesse, who is going to color in everything. A
Mm-hmm.
nice Obscurian collaboration. I love
Yeah,
working with
that's
her.
cool.
It's really lovely. And yeah, and usually there are other things I do online. Write a lot and make a lot of plans. I like planning a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like planning my day to day stuff, but I like planning events and and travels and stuff like that a lot. So
Yeah, so there's an Obscurian roadmap, so you know where you're going
yeah.
in
There's
the.
a file. There's a
Mm-hmm.
file on my computer, and that there's a list of things I need to do immediately for Obscurium, and then in the future for Obscurium, and also
Ah.
things I need to buy for Obscurium. And that's also a question. How much my usually the question people ask me is how much money and how much time do I invest in Obscurium? And the question answer to
Yeah.
both is still too much, but
But I
yeah,
mean, some people like I love Kevin Ball's philosophy. Like it's never too much if it makes you happy. You know,
I
it's
mean that's true.
because I mean, you would say the same of someone who is a who reads a lot. I mean, they would say, "Ah, I read all the time." Is it too much? No, because you enjoy that.
The reason why I say it's too much is not because I don't enjoy it. It's just because there are also other things I want to do, but I get
Yeah,
too distracted by Obscurium too much to like read. I
yeah.
do
That
have so many books I want to read, and I still haven't had the chance to do so because I spend my time doing other things. And
Yeah,
I
maybe
guess
it's too much when
I
you put.
sorry.
Yeah, when you put stuff. Maybe it's too much when you put stuff away, and
Mm,
you focus on the
yeah.
micronation. It's like, oh, I can pay my taxes later. You know, I need to
Yeah,
do.
it's also really a person who quite often procrastinates on things, and then some things
Mm,
just get lost, and then other
yeah.
things start happening. Um, and I'm really not the person who should have too many projects to do at the same time.
Hmm.
But the problem is I have a lot of projects, and the
But
thing I did this to myself. I have nothing, nobody to blame but myself. I found a microflag archive. I founded the Society of Ecology. I found Obscurium. I did this to myself. I, I'm the only one to blame here. But in the end, I don't regret my choices.
well, that's the most important thing, I think. Even if maybe we spend sometimes too much time on our micronations, especially if it's to the detriment of other things we have to do, or to the detriment of other hobbies we may have. Even if it's that, as long as we still enjoy it and that we don't regret, I think that's the most important thing here. And well, good for you if you're still not regretting the time you put on
No,
Obscurium
no.
today.
The only thing I regret is the placement of the Declaration Day. That's all.
You can't have the perfect micronation. That
Yeah,
does not
no,
exist.
nothing is perfect. Like sometimes I think to myself, is this worth it? And then 1 second later, I look at that flag and I think to myself, oh yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I get that. I get that totally.
My next question is yes, also one of your core values you mentioned in your brochure, the concept of civic nationalism. It's something I've never heard before. Could you explain that to us, please? What is
Yes.
civic nationalism?
So civic nationalism is a concept that was developed kind of a response to ethnic nationalism, where people, associate national identity to their ethnicity, or at least to, their the fact that they are born someplace. And civic nationalism is actually the kind of idea that you should be able to choose your nationality. That nationality can is something that is it is too deterministic, I think, to say, oh, because you're born someplace, you'll be this will be your national identity, and this will be the type of person that you can be. And I think that I mean, why would someone who is born unfortunately in a place that has been torn by war, or a place that has many natural resources, or someone who we pillage those natural resources, would be, you know, uh, condemned to poverty or to being of that nationality, and that's it. Civic nationalism is mostly related. It's mostly a countermeasure to the rise of ethnic nationalism, which is, you know, mostly associated with right wing movements and stuff like that, where they consider that, and we've heard actually from candidate Donald Trump in the U.S. that immigration is soiling the blood of the nation and stuff like that, and that's kind of a perfect example of ethnic nationalism, that the our nation needs to be kept for the people who are here, and, you know, prevent other people from ever gaining the same nationality as ours. They'll
Mm.
always be foreigners and stuff like that. Whereas civic nationalism is, you know, it's a bit like what we have in Canada. Canada is I think, a civic nationalistic nation, whereas everyone who wants to contribute to Canada can be a citizen, and we welcome you with open arms. In theory, it's not. We're Canadian society um, is not shielded from stereotypes and racism and um, preconceived ideas on of other people's. Uh, but at least on paper, it's true that anyone who wants to contribute to Canada can become a citizen, and that they can decide that they're Canadian, and that will be fine for most of us. And so, yeah, that is the idea with Sancratosia, and I think it's, well, most micronations are micronations of civic nationalism, but I thought it was important to say that it's part of one of the reason we also founded Sancratosia was exactly to give some people who may feel lost in their nation, who may feel abandoned by the government, especially on transgender issue, but I mean, any human rights issue can also apply here, that they could, by adhering to Sancratosia, have a feel of identity. And so we considered it important to enshrine into one of our core values and principles that, yes, we are a civic nationalistic nation, state, or whatever you want to call it, and we completely adhere that this should be. Uh, it's kind of, you know, kind of contradictory the way I sometimes see things, being a founder of a micronation but believing that borders should be abolished. Maybe it's tinted also by the view we have in Quebec with sovereignty movement in Quebec, and the First Nations movement to, you know, partition the land so that they would have some, you know, but land borders and nations are quite relatively modern concepts in society, and that's why I'm really interested in civic nationalism as a concept, because I think ultimately the where you're born should not define who you are and what you have access to. And uh, why would someone who is born in Russia be condemned to never be out and reveal their identity or sexual orientation, for instance, to take one example where homosexuality is still
Mm.
punished. Could have been, you know, China or many other countries where homosexuality is forbidden. And so why couldn't you aspire to be of a nationality that, at least in the moment, why couldn't you aspire to be of a nationality that at least allows you to be yourself? But ultimately, why the place of birth determines the nationality that you have? To me, it's just, you know, quite foreign if you really think about it. And immigration then does not make really sense when it's civic nationalism. It's not a concept of, you know, of people coming and diluting your country. It's people coming and contributing to your country,
Mm.
and that's the way I see things. And yeah, we just thought that it was important to really say out there that this is the way we see the world, and this is the way, because I think micronations can also be that, you know, entities which are adding their voices. I always found micronationalism not um, directly an end, but a means to get some message out there. I'll continue to be involved in politics in Quebec, and I'll continue to advocate for things in other institutions and other instances. But I think that a micronation is one more voice that can be added to the debate, and that says, you know what, why do we have, you know, strict nations and stuff like that, which is sometimes can be, you know, contradictory to have founded a micronation to say, well, we shouldn't have borders and we shouldn't have nation states the way we used to have. But I still think that, you know, sometimes to be understood by some people, you need to act like them. And so I think maybe that's the thought behind Sancratosia, is that we still strive to have, and it's part of the name, but to have the most state-like entity, so that maybe one day other state entities understand us and we could have a debate equal to equal. It's
Mhm.
utopia. It's really utopic in mind, but in practice. But I think in mind it makes sense that let's try to have the most state-like entity that could try to reason with other states and try to advocate for ideas. So that's generally the idea behind Sancratosia, and that's why it took so long for us. And I think we still struggle with some things because politically, the situation in Quebec, we totally agree with First Nations having wanting rights on the territories that they used to control or that they used to inhabit, and so claiming territory that is not even Quebec's but probably First Nations, I think is and I think I diverged from the question a bit, but um, I think that's why. But the situation with the territory is, I think, one of the reasons why civic nationalism is interesting, because maybe you could be a member of a nation which doesn't have a clear territory, and that would still be fine. Of course, as long as that nation would be able to provide you with the basic things, which of course Sancratosia can't at the moment. But um, I think the thought concept is interesting, to have a nation which as some territorial claims, it's kind of fuzzy. But, we like it that way. Um, and because I don't want to claim territory that is not Quebec's and probably First Nations rights to inhabit. Um, but why should that prevent us to be a nation? Why should that prevent people to identify with that nation? So I think these are kind of the ideas behind civic nationalism as being enshrined as a value and principles of Sancratosia.
Thank you for that elaboration on the meaning of civic nationalism.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it is a thing can be used to describe quite a few micronations, or
Yeah.
obscurium as well, obviously. It's because the thing is, I was born in Greece and I've lived in Germany a lot, but I never really identified with either of those countries, especially
Hmm.
Germany. So obscuring was kind of my way of creating my own national identity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can
I think we
I
see
try
that
to agree with that.
in a lot of micronationalists, that a lot of micronationalists don't feel at home. It's not true for everyone, but I think that there are a lot of people who, you know, feel lost in the place where they are, whether because their government has abandoned them, or because they feel they feel stateless or stuff like that. So I think that's one of the interesting about micronation, that at least it gives you a sense of identity, and
Yeah.
it helps you move forward and in life. And that's why we've received comments like that with Sancratosia, with people who are like, you know what, I just felt lost where I am, and I just, want some sense of belonging some place. And we really greet them with open arms, because that's sometimes what people need at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
And even if they are of passage, I think that, or even if they don't contribute much, I think that some of these people, we have to have micronations which exist also for that purpose, to give some sense of identity for people. And so I'm glad that they found us in that, that ultimately our ideals are what brings them to us.
Nice.
That was a deep subject.
Well, some micronations can be fun and silly, but sometimes they are also quite deep and philosophical and serious. So
Exactly. So
we're really bringing up all of that right here.
yeah, my last question is a more of a light-hearted
Okay.
question. It's not the most serious one I could think of. It's will you come to Montreal in 2025 for
Ah,
MicroCon?
that's also a question I've been asked before. I've already booked my flight. Now,
It's, of course, it's a hypothetical question, but
no, I really want to. It's really it's really a money question, but
definitely.
depending on how when it is and how expensive the flights are,
Hmm.
it will not it will not fail because of my willingness or my unwillingness to go there. I definitely want to. Also because I really want to go back to Canada. I've never been to Quebec before,
Hmm.
so I really wanna go there and see it, and yeah, meet the people, the American micronationalists again as well,
Yeah.
because I've been interacting with the European ones in persons for the last couple of years. We had European micron, but at European micron we also had a couple of American micronationalists I met
Hmm.
in 2019 in Toronto. So
Yeah.
that really made me want to meet all of the other people who couldn't make it to Europe again. So and new people
Sure.
too, like yourself, of course. So
Yeah, and every year Microcom brings new people, and
yes,
that's what's nice about it. And yeah, maybe then you mentioned, going to Canada, and maybe they are kind of segue into, are there things you're looking forward, if you can come to Montreal, to do, or have you not thought about it already, or things you want to do in Quebec that
I
you
have
already are
I haven't really made a specific list yet. I mean, regarding things I want to do in Canada, one, I want to visit the capital, of course, because
mm-hmm,
something I've really developed over the last few years. Whenever I go to a country, I'm near the capital. I definitely have to go to the capital and go into parliament and stuff like that, because I
mm-hmm,
really
mm-hmm.
love going into parliament houses.
Oh, it's
Uh,
always fantastic. I know.
yeah.
I do the same thing.
Unfortunately, the one in Scotland was closed on weekends. But the weekend I went there was the last weekend when it was closed on weekends, because the week afterwards they were going to be open on weekends from that point on. So that was really frustrating.
That's just terrible timing,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
So
I do the same thing. Unfortunately, at Ottawa's parliament is the main one is closed for renovations, but they
yeah.
are still, they are in the same block. We have, there's more than one building, and what they did is quite good. They took the indoor court of one of the buildings and they transformed it into the assembly room,
Okay.
and so that's where they are right now. And the Senate has been moved to the former train station of Ottawa, so it's a completely different other building. But it's really, the two places are still really gorgeous and really
All right.
beautiful.
I hope I can see them during my trip. And the other two things like that were on my list on Canada specifically, I haven't done too much research yet on what I want to do exactly. That would come when the date for Micro comes out. Then I'd start doing all the
Yeah,
research
yeah,
and making
definitely.
specific lists. But now the Bay of Fundy, that looked like a real cool place. At,
Hmm.
in Nova Scotia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's kind of split between, I think, Nova Scotia and New Brunswick.
Yeah,
Depends on
around
which
there.
side, but I know, yeah.
And then I really want to go to Churchill, Manitoba,
Yeah,
and see polar bears,
yeah,
because where else am I going to see polar bears?
exactly. But you're in for a ride.
That was one of the reasons. I then that train looked quite interesting.
Ah, yeah. Even though it's expensive, I know that And an overnight trip to Halifax is almost $1,000.
Yeah.
So an overnight train to Halifax is quite expensive even for us in Canadian currency. But at least with the euro, you're good with the exchange rate.
Yeah,
So
but I know for a fact when I go to Microcon, I'm not going to go to Churchill because I'm probably not gonna have the spare money for that.
yeah, and Churchill is really far. I mean even the Bay of Fundy is far from
Oh
Montreal.
yeah,
So
that's never part of the country. Oh yeah, and
it's
Churchill,
probably another trip.
Churchill is up like Hudson Bay. It's almost Arctic,
Oh yeah,
completely
yeah, yeah.
different
It's
terrain.
uh, it's gravel
I've
roads
always
all the
dreamt
way. Yeah.
about going to a place like even though I hate cold weather, but I really like the the landscape of that
Yeah.
yeah of that area. So I really want to see that. If it were up to
From
me, I'd go to Nunavut, but that's probably much more expensive still.
and it's especially staying there that is expensive. It's
Yeah.
not that much going, because in Canada, going to the farthest places at one point, it's all the same price. It's the same as going to Europe actually.
No.
um it's all for really a ticket to Iqaluit is probably in the thousands of dollars, so it's the same as going to Paris.
Dear God.
Yeah, yeah, it is something, but then it's staying there because everything is brought up by planes. So that's the
Yeah.
infamous places where you find
As I've heard.
orange juices at $16 a bottle, and that you will find frozen pizza at $25 a piece and stuff like that. So these are the places where you find all the funny pictures of way overpriced things
Mm.
that you usually find in common
Yes.
grocery stores. But yeah, that's the thing. That's why I think a lot of Canadians don't move to, or at least don't go to these far places, is because it's as expensive as going to Europe, and
Mm.
we prefer to go to Europe than
Yeah.
Iqaluit. Iqaluit is not the Paris of Canada,
I mean, and I
unfortunately.
guess yes, I guess there are some things to see there, but like compared to Paris,
I mean, spending 5 days in Iqaluit, I think after 5 hours, you're probably done. So the next 4 days, 4 and almost 5 days are terrible.
Mm,
But then going to Paris in 5 days, you still have plenty to
ex-
do. You cannot do everything in 5 days.
it's
So
quite
I
different.
guess why people, when they see the price of the tickets, they don't hesitate long to go to Paris.
Mm. Like what I would actually really like to see is like along the Northwest Passage there are these old trading posts from the Hudson's Bay
Mm-hmm.
Company and all that
Mm-hmm.
abandoned trading posts in this beautiful landscape. That's my
Yeah,
stuff. That's
yeah,
really my stuff.
because
But then getting there is even more difficult than getting to Iqaluit even. So those are just
oh yeah, yeah.
dreams really.
But from what I've heard, the landscapes are really really gorgeous,
Mm.
and one of my dreams is actually to go to Radisson, which is the northernmost French speaking city in Canada.
Ooh.
But it's something like almost a day's drive, and most of it is on gravel roads. And
Quebec is big.
um, yeah, yeah, and yeah, that's the thing. Quebec is really big, and that city's only purpose is to house the people who work the river dam that's over there, because it's one of the biggest river dam complexes in the world, even though you don't see it from the surface because it's all underground.
Oh.
But you can visit the underground dam, and most people take a picture with the famous spillway. There's a big spillway that is over there, but it's a place where there's, I don't know how many people live there. It's ridiculously small, but I would love to see that, because it's impressive that we were able to do that in Quebec. Just got out of what we call and you would probably love that, the Great Obscurity. It's an infamous period in Quebec where all technological development was hindered by the conservative government, who really wanted to focus on agricultural practices and didn't really invest in technologies and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why color TV in Canada, Quebec is one of the last place to have color TVs.
You
And
just got that.
No, no, not now. But back then, it was really endured, and religion had a really had a good grasp on the government of Quebec. And in the span of, I think, 10 years after that, we were building these big, technologically difficult to do dams in places where no one was ever living there, and we built all that infrastructure in a such a short time after leaving that moment where color TV was happening, and then we were building these some of the largest dam complexes in the world in the total wilderness where there's no running water, no electricity. It's just amazing, and the leap technologically that we did, and to me that's, I think, the most impressive thing to see that we were able to do that with so little time to catch up to the rest of the world. That was quite interesting.
Indeed, sounds quite interesting too.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
So hopefully you'll have the time and money to come to Montreal in 2025.
I hope so too. I really do. And there we go. The last question for you is I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but what's the most important achievement in Sancratosia's history up to this point, in your opinion?
Whew. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't want to give out the cliche of founding the micronation and being alive
Yeah.
2 years after. I guess that that is the real answer. But no, truly, I think that doing the two microcons back to back was something quite impressive for a micronation that was, not even a year old for the first microcon, and then being confirmed as a co-host not even 2 years in. I mean, I cannot think any other micronation that probably and I don't say that because I'm proud of what we did, but um, I'm trying to look at other micronations who've been able in so short time do such an impact internationally, or at least being so active internationally. There are some, but to the point where within 2 years, a micronation has been to two of the biggest micronational conference, which takes money, and takes recognition, and then to be confirmed as a co-host of a microcon. I mean, I still somehow don't understand how we were able to do it, but quite honestly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I think it's
Yeah.
probably our greatest achievement, and that everywhere we look, people are always saying good things about Sancratosia, and they say, "Oh, we've only heard good things," and I say, "But I mean, I'm on many channels where I see discussions, and I mean, I don't see anywhere where people talk that much about Sancratosis. I mean,
No,
okay,
but
people,
even I mean, before the Digi Micro Summit, I didn't
yeah,
really know anything about Sancratosia, but even I had a really positive image of you in my
yeah.
head. Like Sancratosia, oh yeah, I don't know anything about it, but they're really good. I've
So
heard good things about them.
and to have and to have not only such a good reputation, but people who know you, and it's not like on a Discord like
Yeah.
MicroWiki, or they're always spitting your name, and you see it go by, and you say, okay, I understand why people have a good reputation. I mean, because I see people publicly talking about the micronation. But I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, so people amongst themselves are talking about Sancratosia, or at least asking others about Sancratosia, and everyone has good words about Sancratosia. And I'm like, I'm never advertising anywhere. I'm not the most active, even on social media, because it's.
Mm.
I thought I was going to be good, but this is the cobbler who is not good, who doesn't have great shoes. It's I work in communication, so the last thing I want to do when I stop working is doing more communications work.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm terrible on
makes
social
sense.
media, whereas it's part of my it's what I do weekly at work. every day I'm writing stuff for the social media and for newsletters and stuff like that. And I cannot even do that for Sancratosia. So that says a lot. I thought I was going to be better at this, but so I'm not the most active on social media. I never advertise anything, and people just have great things to say about Sancratosia, and they know about Sancratosia. They're not many people are like, what? I never
Yeah.
heard
I,
about you. So I think that's a great achievement.
yeah, I guess those
If I look objectively, I try to be as objective as I
I
can
know,
on
and
that.
I would agree with you. Those are two really big achievements. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The second part too. I mean, I heard, you don't do the advertisement, but at the same time, you kind of do through these cultural exchanges, for example, because
Oh,
the way
sure,
I
sure.
actually heard of you for the first time properly, I think, was from Niels of Edristan,
Hmm.
who, when I was there, received a letter from Sancratosia.
Oh,
So I was
yeah.
actually there when he opened it. So what a better advertisement for your
Oh,
micronation than actually,
hmm.
yeah.
I
um,
see.
get doing this exchange, and then he showed it to me, and then I saw that, and now we're doing this exchange too, and
Hmm.
maybe people are going
Ah.
to see this, and I'm certainly going to show people my Sancratosian banknotes and stamps, and it continues like that.
The same with yours. I mean, I mean, and then you sent also quite a lot of things in there. Thank you again for that. And yeah, but also to have people like when at the first microcon, I mean, I received a medal from George of Slabovia, who is not known to be really generous on medals. Slabovia is a micronation that has a lot of medals, but they're
Mm,
careful who they give it to. And so I mean, for so many of the old guard of micronations to be impressed by the project, whereas I thought that, and some of the things I've done, I'm always putting myself into question. Is it good? Is it the best I could have done, and stuff like that. And we all do that, but to have that confirmation from some of the old guard that, yeah, that is an interesting project, and what you're doing is really awesome, and stuff like that. And to hear George of Slapovia congratulating you on your project when it's not even 1 year full for Sancratosia. I'm talking about the Microcon in 2022 in Las Vegas, and stuff like that. To have these people, appreciating your work, I think that's it's just the most awesome feeling. And um, yeah, and a personal achievement was to meet Kevin Baugh. I mean,
oh
um,
yes.
I discovered micronations at the turn of 2011, 2012. So that's a long time ago. And I've always wanted to meet Kevin, and of course, going to microcon, I knew I was going to meet him. And to me, that was like a dream come true, after all these years of waiting, and saying, oh yes, one day I'll go to Molossia, one day I'll meet Kevin, one day I'll do that. And but then finally deciding to and meeting him, not just as someone, but as the leader of another nation, and to spend some time also with Adrian, and meeting all the wonderful folks at microcon. That has been something that personally I've quite enjoyed, and to meet the people that I've been looking up to for many years.
Mm,
That has been wonderful. There are still a couple that I want to meet. Mostly folks in Europe. Arthur of Dictionary, and Niels of Flandrensis, and a couple more people in the francophone community. But yeah, that's I think the personal achievement is to meet the wonderful people, then especially people that inspire me to stay in the community, and people that I've been looking up to for many years now.
wonderful, wonderful. Now, um, it's been 2 hours, so I think it's time to wrap this. I think this has been the longest
I mean, I
exchange up to
told
this
you,
point.
when you get me talking, I talk.
Well, speak wisely. But we've had a great conversation, and the
Yeah,
fact that
sure.
it went on for so long is a very positive sign. But just to end this part of the exchange, there is of course the second video.
Yeah.
But to end this part of the exchange, why don't you give us a little look into the future? What's in store for Sancratosia in 2024?
I should look at my roadmap because I also have a roadmap for Sancratosia. Let me see if I can find it real fast. Because I sometimes forget the things that I want
Well, yeah, so do
to
I.
do. Um, and a couple of well, of course, a couple of things that I want to do. Um, I would love to do. There are some things coming in the public force of Sancratosia. So I mentioned, of course, the uniforms coming, but we also want to try to see if it would be possible to create and probably showcase that in Microcon 2025. I wanted to showcase them in Microcon 2023, but the individual meal packs where those are the rations that you would give out to people. So kind of explore the both the culinary aspect of Sancratosia and the culinary culture of Sancratosia by packing meals ready to eat for people who would be on the field or to give out in times of emergency. So trying to develop things like that. So there are a couple of ideas on the public force side because it's a subject that is dear to our Minister of State, and it's interesting to work with someone who's having on hands experience in the military field. um, we also found a place which can record a custom vinyl. We still don't know what we would put on that, but we think it's interesting to have maybe a record company in Syncretosia, and maybe I think I could do a musical contest in amongst citizens or maybe amongst micronations or something like that, and having that put on a vinyl that would be interesting because it's physical. It's really
Yeah, yeah.
something that you can touch, something that you can play, and vinyl of all the medium is something that is really physical. And of course, there's also some ideas about casino things, maybe having chips, playing cards, stuff like that. I think it's interesting because it usually brings people together. You usually have a good time at the casino. So
Spent a
w-
bit too much time in Las Vegas, did you?
I didn't gamble in Las Vegas. I gambled only in Atlantic City and in Montreal. I every time I gambled in Montreal, I lost. But in Atlantic
Oh.
City, I did good. I did good in Atlantic City. I still have my lucky chip from Atlantic City. I didn't have it in Las Vegas. I was
I've
not ready
never
to.
gambled in my life, so I can't
But it's not.
anything on that.
Of course, it wouldn't be gambling with money. I mean, having casino chips made, it would be also a nice thing to send in trade exchanges and stuff
Of
like that.
course.
So I'm always thinking of things that you can give up to people, and of course, I want to have some custom flying disc made because that's the national sport of Sancratosia. So it would be nice to have these types of things. So there are a couple of things, a lot of producing stuff, and continuing the development of other things. We've just started doing um, handmade booklets
Mm.
so that you can write notes in. They're red, they're really gorgeous, and we have made stickers that are um, kind of made in Sancratosia, so they're certifying that they were handmade in the territory of
Mm.
Sancratosia, where we are right
Nice.
now, and so putting them forward in the shop and stuff like that would be also ways to contribute to the micronational economy and stuff like that. So there are a couple of things like that that are on the back burner, as we say, in developing Sancratosia as a whole. Also, but these are some of the specifics that we want to do in the near future.
Nice. Well, thank you for giving us a look into the future for Sancratosia then.
And of course, we'll have to prepare for Microcon 2025. So
Yes.
that
Yes, as
that
the
will
year also
be
around that'll of course come.
a lot of things, but all in due times.
Mm. If you are interested in seeing what Obscurium has in store for the future, of course, I will refer everyone listening this to the Vice President's New Year's address, since it's literally only been 13 days since that. In short, though, it's the year of the dragon, so we're gonna do lots of dragon-related stuff, which is going to be announced quite soon. So stay tuned for that. and of course the Micro Euro Summit as usual, and maybe some more micronational, well, definitely some more micronational collaboration.
Wonderful.
So, Chloe, thank you very much for joining me in this exchange, and yeah, it's been an absolute blast. I really enjoyed
I
talking to
enjoyed
you
it.
and
Yeah,
learning more
same.
about Sancratosia over these past 2 hours.
Same. It's it's one of the reasons we joined micronationalism
Mhm.
is to do these types of things. So, thanks for the opportunity of exchanging with you.
Pleasure was all mine. So, as I already said earlier, there's a second video to this exchange where we talk about flags. It's on the same channel as you're watching this on right now, so please go watch that too. And there are links to Sancratosia's website if you want to learn more about them. Will also be in the description of this video, so please do check them out. They are quite lovely. And yes, thank you for watching. I've been Zaranchnov, president of Obscurium, as always. Cheers.
And yeah, ciao.